Okay. Welcome to Grid Investor. Great community that we built years ago to help real estate investors and agents learn more about how to build wealth through real estate. My name is Rob Chevez. I am one of the facilitators of this group, along with my business partner here, Mr. Mark Beckett. We call him Bex, all right? That's him. And the way we like to start this off, guys, is just to kind of help you learn about who's in the room, because we believe that the power is in the network. So it's not just the information that you're going to get tonight. It is literally the person to your left, the person to the right, the person behind you that can affect change in your life, right? We now, because of COVID, do this hybrid, which we're happy to do, but the real power happens in the room. Personal conversations that happen along the side between somebody saying, oh, I want to sell something, I want to buy something. Deals get exchanged, right? Business gets done. And it gets done when you guys actually learn more about who you are and all the rest, right? So the way we like to normally go through is just do some basic intros really fast. And Mike, why don't we start with you? Just kind of go through. Who are you? Why are you here? What do you do? If you have a deal, to sell, say I got a deal to sell, all that good stuff.
My name is Mike Weber. I work for the CAZA Group. I'm an agent and an investor. I've been investing a little longer than I've been an agent. Long term, I plan on buying and holding. That's what I do. I participated in a couple of flips before, but I want to buy and hold. That's the goal.
And he's a crypto guy. All his stuff was in Celsius, right? Yeah. Okay. Cool. Thanks, man. John, thanks.
Hey everybody, my name is John. I've been coming to CAZA for 10 years now.
Yeah.
CAZA Grid, all the name changes.
That's right.
I own PMI Fairfax, a residential property management company. So we have a buy and hold investor. Done a couple flips as well. I'd like to help out the group. Been investing since 2006. So I always said I haven't seen it all, but I've seen a lot. So feel free to ask me any questions.
And John was trying to convince me about Bitcoin when it was like 3,000.
Trying to convince you it was like 30.
My name is Sloan. I'm a Reston realtor, and I have some buy and hold properties primarily in Reston, and always appreciate what the Grid network has to share and the info that we've already here. So
I had him sell one of his rentals this year.
yeah,
It was painful.
yeah, it was only like 5 years in the
Yeah, 5 years of that
It was a 5-year decision.
5-year decision, but
Yeah.
Yeah.
Appreciate-
time.
Appreciate the insight.
good time. Perfect.
Yeah.
Yeah. Go ahead.
I'm Joe Detter. I'm with Keller Williams Fairfax Gateway. Also a little bit of an investor, a little bit of a flipper. And the goal is passive income so we can step away someday and not do this grind every day, right?
Amen.
Yeah.
Right?
Right here.
And I've got money, so I'm ready to buy.
All right.
Okay. And if anybody knows the Greenbrier community here, that like this guy like dominates it, right? You don't even want to go and, dude, you dominated. You dominated. It's awesome, right? You've done a great job. So go ahead, sir.
Raman Singh, I hold some properties and buy sell properties. Kind of investor.
Welcome. Welcome.
My name is Scott Kraft. I am actually out here from Denver. I personally I used to be a fix and flipper. Now I kind of do a couple developments. I have a few rental properties. I'm an agent, but my primary business is hard money lending. I'm with Pine Financial Group, and we have a lot of money to lend out here to you burr investors. So come talk to me.
Awesome. Yeah, that's so good to have money in the room, right? Feels so good. And you're sitting right next to the money.
Yeah.
And it's good to see from Denver. Like last time we met at the brewery event.
Yes.
Right? That was great.
So he finances first,
Yes.
maybe some about rehabs.
Yes, we'll do rehabs.
Oh, we will, not I will. So
Hey,
it's a company.
Yes.
Yeah.
I'm Yumi. I'm also a realtor, new to investing, and I'm here to just learn and grow, and yeah,
Awesome.
that's what I'm about.
Well, welcome.
Thank you.
I'm Roxanne, I'm agent in the office, and me and my husband own an appliance repair company. And I'm just here for us to make our retirement plan and just, learn about investing and buy a home. That's the goal.
Yeah.
Can I just say, like, they are awesome, like Roxana and Encore, like, if you need an awesome appliance repair company, HVAC, kitchen appliances, laundry appliance, they are.
No, you
I
guys
can't
are
say
awesome.
all
They
of
just,
it, truly
they just did, I had like this big old washing machine that my daughter like overstuffed or something. She said, the door won't open. These things are expensive. I'm like,
The
come
dog's
on,
in there.
right? I know. No,
You guys do HVAC?
Yes.
Yeah, you desperately need them out in
Yeah.
Magnolia, seriously.
do you,
Yeah.
do you put in new HVAC?
Yes,
Yes.
yes, that's our mostly our
Really?
business for the.
Oh my God. I
Rob
have-
has a job for you.
I got a joke. Your husband will look at it. What do you think it was built in? I mean, do you think it's like 1976?
Something like that.
I'll have him
It's
give you a call
impossible
when
that
he
it
gets
is still
back.
running,
Yeah.
and it's not running well.
It's not, it's the condensation is just pouring everywhere.
Literally pouring it.
Yeah,
Okay.
let us know.
Okay, I didn't know that. That's awesome. Cool. Woo, woo.
Hi, I'm Justin Shutters. I'm a commercial lender with Bank of Clark County. I work out of their office in Tyson's. We do acquisition, development, construction financing, financing for buy and hold, and 100% financing for experienced flippers.
Think of Clark County, like Front Royal, with that whole area, Clark County.
It's the county sidewalks, yeah.
Before you get to.
Both.
Next to
For the
Loudon.
county. If you
How
go
many-
down 7,
Between Loudon and Winchester.
Well, the thing is, I'm in Front Royal, but it is Clark County.
No,
No,
Probably
different.
Warren County.
Okay, okay.
I think you're warning out.
I am 100% not Warren County.
Oh, okay.
I'm 100% Clark County,
Okay.
but I have a Front Royal
You're
address.
closer to Route 7.
Yeah.
I guess you're like the northern part of the front.
Yeah.
Well, this is your banker then.
That is my
This is your
name.
community bank. So
They
this
say
is-
you live in Sterling, but not Fairfax.
Right.
So you're like in the good schools.
Why are you busting my chops?
So how many branches do you have?
I think about 12 or 13. Closest one is in Ashburn.
Okay.
We have a loan production office here in Tyson's Corner and one is in Frederick.
Where do you deal with the non-productive loans? Do you have like an NPO department, or what do you do with?
Like work after group.
Yeah, that's right.
Not really.
Yeah.
We don't have any, we haven't had any non-performing loans. I can always
Pat,
double
That
check.
was like straight to it, Pat.
That's right.
Like
Well,
you just like went straight.
we're gonna lay that foundation for next year, when maybe we can have another discussion. But welcome. Good.
Yeah, welcome to the-
Love it. Love it.
Hello, everybody. My name is Carla Vera. I work for David Joel and Associates.
Woo, woo.
Today. We are a buyer's agent for the Central Fairfax area, and I'm here to learn more about what you guys do, talk to the money person, and get my washer fixed. Just started leaking, actually.
Yeah, it's hours in the network is what we always say.
So I'm excited to be here.
Cool. Welcome.
I'm Jay Delisandro, owner of David Joel Associates. I own 4 properties. None of them are income producing, so you'll have to learn.
That's okay, man. Yeah, and I mean, powerhouse team here in the DMV area. Crush it. Good job, you guys. Right, go ahead.
Hi, my name is Joanne Durbin. This is my career. I'm actually a physician assistant. I started investing in 2009, buying and holding rental properties. I did liquidate all of my assets because I needed a break, so I'm trying to get back into it, but I'm interested in multifamily.
Okay.
So,
Cool, awesome, well, welcome.
Some people would, get to know this area. I've only been here for 2 years, so.
Where are you from?
I moved around a lot.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay.
I literally lived, in probably. I'm not young. I look young, not young.
Well, cool,
Yes.
well, welcome.
Thank you.
Hi, good afternoon, everyone. My name is Edwin Arau. This is my second time here. I'm a mindset by training, not a worker. So with cash, you wanna be able to do with that, so, happy to learn. I was interested in passive income, buy and hold, and that's the point.
Awesome. Well, welcome. Thanks for coming back.
So I've been coming to Rob's meetups now for over 5 years at least. And I always come here. I didn't have to come today, but I made it a point
Thank
to
you.
get a babysitter and leave my 5 old at home just to come listen to you guys. So you guys are awesome. So I have over 80 plus rentals. I'll definitely be giving you a call. We use Fauquier Bank a lot and First Bank in Warren County. And but we need some new people. I'm actively flipping 4 houses. I just picked up 2 houses yesterday to flip, one in Pasadena, Maryland, and one in Laurel. And I just put another contract on another house in Haymarket. So I flipped 42 houses last year, and I still come to Rob's events because I can always find
Yes.
them.
And by the way, that's his part-time job. I'm not lying. I don't know how he does it.
What's your money? It's money. You know, when you get a $50,000 wire, because you just put the house,
Yeah,
it's addicting.
he's a lawyer.
So anyway, so thank you very much for hosting.
Sure.
That. Definitely use you on the 100%. That, I mean, yeah, I'm really excited.
Buki, go ahead.
I'm Buki Deli. I am.
Queen Buki Deli.
Buki Deli, you can refer to me that way from now on. I am a realtor and a me with the CAZA Group at Keller Williams. And this topic is very interesting to me because I would also one day like to own 80 rentals.
You can, you do the DRR. I bought 4 houses, just buy it all with hard money with this gentleman's loan and just refinance right out of it, hopefully with this gentleman's loan. And that's how you do it. You buy low, you sell high. All you need is 20% equity in the property.
Yeah, and that's why I'm here to network and meet with people.
Awesome.
My name is Ali Davar. I also work with the CAZA Group with Rob, Mark, Buki, Mike over there. We specialize in helping buyers and sellers make smarter decisions, and we work with a lot of investors in the DMV area. I personally work a lot in Reston. I always love being here and meeting all of you. So thank you.
Yeah, I mean, one of our biggest missions is to help our teammates build wealth in the process. And it's good to see our teammates actually coming out now to have these meetings, because for a long time, I was like, it's really interesting. Like, you don't have, you have big wealth determiners in here helping people build wealth, but like the team will plug into that, right? So now I'm seeing that, and it feels good. Right, what's that?
Don't forget about these guys.
No, we keep going on the left and we'll go to the very top.
Hi, everyone. My name is Svetlana Johnson. That's my first time here. I'm a buy and hold investor. I have 4 properties, 1 in Virginia and 3 in West Virginia. And I want to buy more and specifically interested in short-term or medium-term rentals.
Awesome.
Max Fleece, I'm a financial planner, first time here and here for personal reasons. I don't have any properties other than what we live in today, although I had a rental when we lived in California. And then I'm also here because a lot of the clients that I have, either have or are interested in alternative forms of investing, including real estate. So here for edification on my clients' behalf as well.
Awesome. Welcome.
I'm Michelle Hudnall. I'm a solo agent here out of the Reston office, and this is second career for me. So I'm also looking to have passive income going forward. Currently thinking about buy and holds and looking at lots near Kerr Lake in Southern Virginia for Airbnb. And my brother has a lake house down there, so he got me down there to brainwash me.
We got you in the front. Well, welcome, Michelle. Thanks for coming. Okay, in the back.
Yeah, my name is Kareem. I'm a realtor at Pearson Smith. I just came out here to connect and learn something new.
Well, welcome. We won't hold it against you. No, I'm good friends with Eric.
We do it all, we wouldn't be here.
Yeah, that's right. I'm good friends with him. He's a good guy. Go ahead.
My name is Farouk. I own a couple of properties as a rental.
I heard you're doing the construction exam.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, he just passed it, by the way, and he said it's the hardest exam he ever took.
We played soccer together.
Oh, okay.
Back
There
in
you
the
go.
day, he was really good.
Yeah,
He
he
was a good
was
stopper.
really good.
Yeah, he was good. We're all
Damn, okay.
No, but that's really hard. Like,
I also played soccer with him in high school. He wasn't that good.
we played Friday night, so it's hard to get players.
Okay. Scream. Can't see, man.
Hey,
Good
how
to
are
see
you?
Last but not least.
Yeah.
I'm Gary Green. I'm a rehabber, been in the business for 25 plus years. Do about 25 properties a year, mainly Virginia, have, 5 or 6 rentals also. Just here to pick up a wholesale deal if anybody has anything to wholesale.
That's right.
And
That's
I
right.
might have one to wholesale higher end than Reston if anybody's interested.
Yes, we are. Very interested. Okay, so let's talk, before we jump right into this topic. Well, actually, go ahead.
Well, you said I was Mark, and that's cool. I'm Mark. Hi, everybody. Nice to meet you. That was a complete waste of time, by the way. Hopefully you heard, there's all kinds of cool people in the room, right? We got agents and wholesalers, bankers, money, buyers and sellers, property managers, it's all here, right?
Appliance repair.
We even got, thanks to John, we've even got a couple of cookies still floating around somewhere. So we're gonna talk about our thing and then we'll hang out for a little bit and everybody can kind of catch up and chat, right? Make sure if you want to make connections, you do that, because
You
that's
have
the
to
point.
share your screen if you want the other folks to see.
Okay, thank you very much. I'll work on that. And then speaking of housekeeping stuff, thanks for joining us at an office that we don't even occupy yet. This is literally the first thing we've done over here. I haven't even moved the cards over yet. So I have no idea why it's like 1,000,000 degrees. We'll try to work on that for the next time. If you need to use the restroom, there are codes for the men's and ladies' room on a little sign as you're going out the door there. So bathrooms are out in the lobby, and Skylar, I think, is in the lobby to let people back in, because we're also working out how to get the doors unlocked. We'll figure all that stuff out. Hopefully enjoy the new fun environment. So thanks for dealing with us while we iron out the kinks of the new fun office with the new fun TV. And I'm gonna try to share the screen for. Okay, Rob, you vamp while I work on it.
What's that?
I said you vamp while I work on it.
Okay, okay. So one of the things we always like to talk about before we get on, introduce yourself real fast. Go ahead. You snuck in here.
I'm like, hey, everyone.
Yeah.
Investor.
Weicker, like team broker, right? Bought 52 properties last year.
46.
46. So it was literally
Almost one a week.
one a week, right?
Right.
Yeah. Did podcast with it. It was awesome. It'll be coming out shortly, but good to see you, Matt. Yeah, good to see you. Go ahead, introduce yourself.
Oh, me?
Yeah.
Oh, boy, okay, yeah. Hi, everyone. Rico. Been a while since I came to one of these meetups. I see a lot of familiar faces here.
Yeah.
And I guess what's different now is I actually have money to get a property.
Rico, it's good to see you. It's good to have people back in the room. I mean, Mark and I like suffered through Zoom, trying to keep the energy going for about a year. Man, it was hard, right? So it's good to have people in the room again. So thank you for coming, right?
Yeah,
We're gonna make it worth your while tonight.
that's right. We'll get some fans in here for next time. Cool it
I
off.
think
In the
I'll-
meantime, we have nugget ice now. So get your cups of nugget ice and water.
So before we get into the whole legal stuff,
Yeah.
Mark always says, hey, we're not CPAs, we're not accountants, we're just showing you what we do your own due diligence.
We're just dudes to buy houses.
Yeah.
Be happy to have you do the same.
Yeah.
But do your homework.
Do your homework, right? Let's talk about the market real fast. Because market is changing, right? So from those that have some experience, let's hear from you. What are you saying? What are you thinking? What are you feeling? Are you bullish? Are you concerned? Gary, what are you thinking?
It's definitely, it's slowing down in the higher end, and the lower end. If you price it right though, and you're not trying to get the highest amount, price it where it should be and it should move, I think.
Yeah.
Especially in the lower end, you're not getting 10 contracts, but you get 1 or 2 maybe.
And presentable.
Yeah, exactly. And so I was worried about it probably 2 months ago, but I think it's just evening out now.
Yeah.
I'm not as worried as I was 2 months ago.
So what about you?
It's the new, or it's back to the old normal.
That's right.
What was normal was put the house in the market Thursday and we'll review offers on Monday. That's not normal. Right? Now it's normal,
Yeah,
but to everybody else, it's not normal.
yeah. Anybody else saying, what are you feeling?
I had a house that I listed in Maryland in Ellicott City. I put it on like at 600. It's rehab. The highest comp was like around 575. I got an offer at 630. And I went with an all cash offer at 610. So that's really hot. That's why I picked up another one in Laurel, and I picked up another house. in
When was it?
Pasadena,
When was that, by the way?
Like last week.
You know, I felt like there was this, probably about a month ago, there was this, as the market was shifting, people that had been losing came in hard,
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
And so there was a couple of people that came in hard over the top as the
One
market, yeah.
One offer over
One
the
offer.
top, you're like,
I had a
Okay.
townhouse,
You're like, yeah.
I had a townhouse in Marshall, Virginia. It's right off of 66 there. And we priced it 260. The highest comp there had been 240. And my brother was like, well, we went way over budget. We just got to list this thing for 260. I was like, okay. And someone came in to 260 cash.
Okay.
We had 2 offers at full price, and one at FHA, one conventional. I had a house in Broad Run, Virginia, Old Busthead Road. And that, I got crushed with the rates. We came in at 725, had an offer at 725. I bought it for 350, but the budget went over by like 100,000. Just, it's a long story. But anyways, they came in, I could have gotten 725, and then the rates jumped right when they were negotiating the deal.
Yeah.
And I had to reduce that 725 price down to 675, even though they would have paid me 725. And I just listed a house in Stevens City, which is the first house I've ever done there. I had to call showing time, because I'm like, is my house even active? Like, it's been like crickets, like nothing. Now, I don't have professional pictures up. I have like one good picture of the kitchen, but still, like not even one showing. And it's priced at 420. It was priced at 449. I just cut it by 25,000 today. It's only been on the market for 4 days. Like, I want to get out of it. And it should have been priced at 399, but my contractor of course lied, and he said that it would cost 100 and it went up to 140. So welcome to.
Yeah.
But the only reason I used them is because it's all the way out in Stevens City, and my main guys didn't want to go out to Stevens City. So I used another guy that knew was a little bit pricier, but he lived next to the home.
Sure.
But he's just a charlatan. He just,
These things happen. Well, the point of the conversation is the market shifted a little bit. So we just need to be cognizant. The great thing is tonight's topic is about buying and holding. If you're gonna hold for long term and the numbers make sense because you've got a good banker and you get a good grade, you're fine. This is a long-term game, right? This is how do you build wealth over time? I know that when I first started, my thing was, I had this fantasy of I'm gonna buy some houses, I'll retire on the beach, mailbox money's gonna come in. I'm not laughing, right? But then you realize, no, wait a second, like that's not how it works. It takes time. There's still the management of those properties. And if you're not hiring a manager, you are the manager. So it's not passive, like in that sense. And then it's gonna take some time for that portfolio to pay off over time, right? So you wanna put the right debt on it. We put in a lot of 15-year notes on ours. And now we've got a whole portfolio of properties that are practically, they're almost all paid off, right? But it took 15 years, right? It wasn't like do it overnight. And one of the valuable lessons I learned was don't sell, right? If you can figure out a way to just hold on to these things, don't sell, right? I remember in 2004, somewhere around there, 2004, I
just said oops.
Yeah, I know. But your situation was different. We had a discussion on why you should sell it, right? Don't second guess. Everybody's situation is different. You got to figure out what your situation is. For Sloan, I was like, hey, I think you might want to take some money off the table, right? Because he's got these others, and he could take that money and he could pay off these things, and he could sail off into retirement, and all that good stuff. Something like that, right? So if possible, though, you want to buy these things and just hold on to them for a long time. So that's what we're going to talk about tonight. Yeah, right? I know. Yeah.
How it works, where it might not work. But yeah, you just kind of discussed the point of buy and hold is that versus flip. This is not a 6-month thing. These are years-long deals, right? Doesn't make a lot of sense to do a buy and hold for 2 years. It's hard to recapture just closing costs in and out in just a couple of years. So this is for people who are looking to invest for several years, if not a lifetime. And by the way, we can talk on another night on how you never have to sell, right? Ever. You can always, if you have to sell the property, you don't have to keep the money from working. You can 1031 into other things. You can put things in trust that never have to be probated. Should you decide to pass them on. When they do get passed on, they get passed on at what's called a stepped up basis, where the people who inherit them at the current value, not value paid. So you can have tax-free generational wealth that passes on for multiple generations with a good real estate portfolio. So that's why we tell people buy early and often for long-term holds, right?
You know, one of my biggest mistakes was in 2008 when the market completely crashed. Do we have any more seats? Right, come on in, come on in. We'll make right here. I knew we needed a bigger conference, so I told them we needed to do that. And actually, one of the things is, if we do get too full, people can watch the TV from the other side. We just need to somehow get a speaker so that people can be in that other room. And then the overflow room.
Are they synced? Are they sank?
The
Are they
TV,
sunk?
yeah, the TV's over there, but the audio is there.
Got it.
So we'll figure this out.
You can use the owl next time.
There you go.
Okay.
So Rob, do you recommend people that want to do buying holds, should they do condos, houses, single family homes? Is there a particular property that would be ideal for BRRs?
So do we probably get into that?
We talked a little bit
Let's
about,
talk-
yeah, that's about that. But the spoiler alert version is probably not condos, just because they're so hard to control, right? You're not in control of a major part of the expense and maintenance. And I don't like not being in control. We have condos that are.
I mean, I
that are
will tell
good.
you, I have a little condo in Florida, and I like it, but also they jacked up the HOA quite substantially. And I was like, damn, that was fast.
How about maintenance on single family homes, all moving parts?
I prefer my little box townhouses, right? Like those to me are very simple, especially if you've got some of the interior ones, because then you only have the front and the back, the basic roof. They're simple, they're always in demand, and this area is such a transient area. And like you guys have seen what's happened to rents, right? I mean, rents are crazy right now. Like rents are crazy, like multiple applications, I mean, through the roof. I mean,
But and I would agree. I think townhouses is probably the sweet spot because you do have the benefit of usually somebody else helping hold you up. So you have fewer kind of foundational structural stuff to try to keep an eye on. Acquisition cost is typically lower than a single family house of the same type in the same area, right? You don't typically have the same number of fees, so you can control a lot of the maintenance and cost of ownership. So yeah, townhouse is really the sweet spot if you can find it in the market that you're investing.
It's one that I like. I don't know, which one, what asset do you like for your buying holes?
Small multifamily.
Small multifamily. When you say small, 2 to 4, right?
How many are there?
Yeah, 2 to 4. Yeah, they're not here. Where were you buying yours?
I do a lot in Winchester.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
To Maryland, front Royal has a little bit.
Yeah.
Southern Virginia.
So 2 to 4 is great because you can still get under 5, right? Like 4, you get Fannie and Freddie loans. As soon as you go above 5, now it's commercial loan.
Call him.
There you go, right? I know, like, yeah, I bought a 7 unit and I was shocked at like the number, like how expensive it was with closing costs and the loan and it was, right? It was like, damn. Wow. Okay, we've got some.
How much was the appraisal? It's like $2,500.
Yeah, it was expensive. The appraisal was, everything was expensive, more expensive, right?
I don't have a slide for it, but here's your bonus takeaway. Who's got kids here under 21 years old in the room? Anybody? Yeah, all right. Every single one of you then, the very first investment property you should have, if you don't have one, is stick your kids when they're old enough into something somewhere that you own, but they maintain and fill up with a bunch of their donkey knucklehead buddies or other people at school or whatever. If they're going to school, obviously college towns, phenomenal for rental property. But even if they're just gonna like be ne'er-do-wells and living off you for the next 10 years, put them in their own place, tell them you find somebody to live in the other 2, 3, 5, or 10 bedrooms in this house and teach them to house hack. Teach them to be responsible for finding other people, collecting the rent, kicking their butts to get the check for when they need to, fixing the stuff when it breaks, cleaning the carpet when they spill beer on it. They will become far more responsible and wealthy in no time without thinking because you have set them up properly
I'm curious,
to learn to do this
who got
at an early
started
age.
in your house hacking? Anybody? Okay, so 3 of us. It was such a great way to just get in the game, right?
And kids will live in anything. They'll live in any beat down, disgusting building
Who's
that you
had
can put them
student
in.
rentals?
They're awesome.
Yeah.
Like College Park, great. They get destroyed, that's fine. They still
Oh my
make plenty
God.
of money. UVA, great.
I would walk through
Virginia
my
Tech,
student
wonderful.
rentals and be like, how do these girls, the girls who are worse than the guys, live like this? This is disgusting, right? And the guys had all sorts of like beer funnels going down the stairway, like, it's crazy. It was a lot of fun. We made money.
Held in a land trust, over-insured, and with all of the parents on the leases, by the way, but we can talk about that separately. But definitely, really, seriously, the very first rental property you should have, if you don't already have one, and you have kids that are old enough to be living on their own, park them in something, pay for that, let them rent out the rest of it to roommates, so that most of the mortgage, if not all of it, gets covered, doesn't even cost you anything. Put them on a path towards greatness. If I had done that, I quit already.
Or get them to buy it.
Even better, get them to pay for it, but an 18-year-old probably doesn't have credit. That's fine. Co-sign, make them responsible, have them put other people in all the other rooms and manage it and maintain it, and they'll thank you.
And you think that on the podcast, by the way, I don't know if you guys know, we run this podcast, it's called Great Investor. And I interviewed this guy, his name is Andrew Abernathy. And he started investing when he was 13. When he was 18, he raised $10 million, right? By the time he was 22, 23, he bought a bank that was publicly traded. And then at 27, he was like raising $100 million. So it's crazy. Like there are 18-year-old kids out there doing
playing Monopoly in real life, right?
Yeah.
It's an attitude that kids will learn too when you get them responsible for their own stuff. So consideration slightly different for buy and holds than for fix and flip, right? You need to have more free cash typically that you can leave in a property with a buy and hold than with a fix and flip. Fix and flip, we want our money back. We sell the thing, we get our money back. You need to leave at least a certain amount of money in your buy and hold. We hope that we can, well, we hope that we can burr, right? We want to buy and renovate and then hopefully get the value up to the point where we can refinance, take all of the money out, maybe even more money than we had into it. That's a wonderful place to be because now you have infinite rate of return.
Why don't you explain what BRRRR is? Because there's some people in here that don't know what BRRRR is.
Sure. BRRRR. Buy, renovate, rent it out, refinance, and repeat. So you buy the property, hopefully that needs a little bit of work. I guess hopefully it doesn't need any work, but typically for the properties that we get for the price we want to pay, they need a little bit of work. Fix them up, get it stabilized and rent it out. Probably use hard money for the first 6 months while you season the property until a conventional lender will lend you good old fashioned cheap conventional loans for the first 10 for yourself and 10 for your spouse if you're married. You can get the good old fashioned cheap conventional, it's still 10, right? Typically per person.
For Fannie and
They haven't changed Fannie and Freddie guidelines for max. Should be 10. You're gonna have to though, usually have until you've got like a dozen of them. You'll have to own them for about 6 months some other way. So that's where hard money comes into play because they'll fund that 6 month period while you've got it fixed up and get it rented out. Then you can go to the conventional bank, say, give me the cheapest money possible over 30 years, please. They can give you that loan, preferably at the newer, renovated, higher value. And so we've got one that we paid.
Typically give you 75 to 80% of AR.
75 to 80% typically, right? Loan to value for what it appraises for. The reason it doesn't work on day one is banks will give you the lower of appraised value or purchase price. Well, we're buying beaters, right? So I bought one for $75,000. I had to put 50 grand in it. It was worth 200 when we were done. So on day one, it was 75. So the bank would say, well, we'll give you 75% of 75. Not quite good enough. So borrow hard money if you need it for those first 6 months, get your tenant in there, get it seasoned, then go to the bank, then take a loan out at the 200 ARV value, right? With your tenant in there, they give you 75% of that, you get all your money back out and then repeat. That's the
Were you doing mainly BRRRR? It's all BRRRR, really?
The majority of what we do is not BRRRR, but we try to BRRRR everything that we can.
Okay.
But you don't have to have a 6 month seasoning requirement on there's certain bankers that you can, when I bought my 4 houses in Spotsylvania, I refinanced out of them within 29 days.
Yeah.
And there are other ones, you're right, because you can do a debt service coverage ratio, right? That really doesn't have so much to do with your personal ability to pay for this thing, which is what the typical bank wants to see. But a DSCR loan's usually a little more expensive.
Recently, it's really interesting phenomenon. The commercial rates are actually coming a little lower than regular residential rates for some reason.
Nice.
I don't know that might change soon, but yeah, I mean, if you guys, especially if you have a tenant in place, a lease in place, we're going to look forward on that and count that as income.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
to cover the debt service of the property, right? That's why it's called a debt service coverage ratio loan, as opposed to, hey, I make money, I've got a W-2, please lend me money to buy another house. So it's just a different way to qualify for the loan, which you're right, you don't have to always wait the 6 months. Assume that you'll have to, but ask beforehand, and if you can get the debt earlier than that, the faster you can refinance out of it.
I bought a commercial building in Warrenton last month. I bought the appraisal. I started the appraisal before I even purchased the building. It cost me, I think, $6,000 for the appraisal. Paid for it all cash, not my money, raised it, and refinanced out of it within 40 days. So, I mean, you can do it, you just need to find the right bankers.
What kind of building?
It was a pawn shop building in Warrenton. It has like 4 other tenants in it. But it's the same thing as a multifamily, or any type of commercial building. But you just get hard money to pay for it all cash, same thing, $750. The appraisal came in at 1.35 million.
Wow.
The appraisal, yeah, I mean,
Awesome.
it was off the market.
Okay.
So, but it's the same thing, within 40 days, we're out of it or the appraisal. So
Here's-
this is
here's-
like the best way to make money, guys. Like, everyone in this room, like, pay attention, like I went with $200,000, I turned it into 4 million by doing this house hack stuff. You bought the house all cash from a hard money lender, you refinance out of it within 30 days. You already put an ad on Craigslist to rent the house to someone. The tenant, you have the lease in place, they don't have to use your income for the monthly rent. Your tenant, they take 75% of what the tenant's paying you towards whatever your monthly payment's going to be. And you can just rent and repeat, rent and repeat. I mean, it went from 200,000 out, it took about 11 houses, took 200,000 maybe to 4 million. It took like less than 18 months, just quickly. You know, they have an aggressive hard money lender.
There was 2 things that happened. One, like, you also caught it at a good time, right? You also had the right specialized knowledge. You also, here's the number one thing, you went and took action, right? So many people come in and listen to this, and then they don't go out hunting for properties, right? The problem with agents most of the time is that they will, I can say this because I'm an agent, right? Yeah, and so you have to, I started giving myself like a financial, like a wealth building Friday and a Saturday and a Sunday. You just have to make time for your future, like anything else, and consider yourself the client. Say, hey, I'm sorry, I'm showing properties on a particular day. You're just showing them for yourself, right? And, you know, for me, the weekends were go hunting for property. Like, that's what I'm going to do. And then I created leverage in my life so that I didn't have to show property on the weekends, or I didn't have to do open houses. But I now, you know, hunting for 26 acres in, you know, Rob Royal, where we just bought one. So that's what you gotta go do. You gotta go hunt properties, right? And then you gotta go through the exercise. Hey, does it make sense? Will the financing work? Right? You could try to pencil it as much as you want on paper, but you just gotta go look at something, touch it, and then go explore, what are the rents for this? What can I, you know, can I do this project? Who can I meet with to help guide me in this process? There's people in this room that will help you, right? Pick up the phone and call, and then just take action.
And you know, the really important part of what Rob's saying is that you guys might find a good deal in here and you guys will talk yourselves out of it. Like when I used to, when I was like earlier in my life, like you'll be like, oh, why is it such a good deal? There must be something wrong with it. You know, like, why is he hiding it? Like, why would I get this deal? You know what I mean? And so that's like the value of having Rob and Mark, like, call them and say like, I have this good deal, should I do it? And at least if they give their blessing, then they'll do it. But so many times, like me or my mom, like it's too good to be true. There's just no way. You know what I mean? Why? Who am I? You know, I just found this thing on Zillow. Like, you know. And then once you buy your first house and once you get into it, then you'll be like, okay, what's the worst that can happen? What, is there going to be water in the basement? Okay, we'll just call JER repair. We'll dig it up. We'll put some sheathing, and you know, what's the worst? The HVAC's not working. Okay, we have an HVAC repair person. My point is, like, it's not as bad as what can possibly go wrong. You know, it's a house. There's a roof. There's, you know, appliances. It's not complicated.
It's flexing that muscle, but in the beginning, it seems scary as anything.
Yeah, you're like.
I remember just to give you guys perspective, the first deal that came across my desk when I was like doing this full time, it was a divorce situation, and it was like a too good to be true kind of deal. And I kept saying what you were saying, like, what's wrong with this? And literally I put every condition under the sun of like, that would allow me to get out of the deal. And it scared them. Right? Because they were like, oh, he's not committed to this deal. And so literally I lost a deal that they went with somebody else. who had confidence, and I learned a really valuable lesson that day. It was like, oh, you know, what were all my downsides? I could have protected the downside. It was a great deal. I didn't feel like maybe I deserved it. I was like, what? I was scared, right? It was just like, that happens. But you get past it, and then you just learn and you just keep moving forward, right? That's part of this. Yes.
I guess on that topic, is there actually anything that, I'm gonna say an inspection could turn up that would make the house a complete no-go? Don't bother with it kind of deal?
Everything's
What-
fixable, but it just costs money, right? And so one of the scariest might be some kind of structural problem in the property. But even that, even a structural problem,
Fixable.
very fixable. People think it's like super expensive, and it's not. It doesn't have to be, right?
Just, I mean, if you're new, like anything with a well and septic that a wholesaler tries to sell you, don't buy it. Okay, because anyone that has like a huge septic issue.
Don't buy it.
No, I'm not gonna buy it. That's another my lesson. I bought a house with no water because I was stupid and I was greedy.
Oh, he had one of those.
Well, Jad put it under contract and backed out. It did sell at a small profit, but there were well and septic issues.
Yeah, so there was a house that an agent brought to me, Rob, thank you very much, and that's another red flag, right? When an agent who flips houses wants to refer you to a house, you should be like, you know, use your claims, but anyway, so it comes up.
I thought Jad's more aggressive than we are.
No, so I'm well connected into septics. I had to spend $30,000 in a house in Warrenton, $35,000 for a house in Stafford. I still make money on those houses. I've had good luck, but so Rob sends me this house. I'm like, okay, this is great. I can buy it at $250. The ARV is $400. It's a small house, one level. Like, it only cost me like $50,000-$60,000 to fix. So I call my septic guy, right? Richard Faircloth, American Septic. I said, can you please go check out this house? I'm supposed to be buying this thing on Monday. He goes, Chad, the one thing is just one big swamp. He goes, and it's a small parcel. I have pictures. It's just standing water, you know? And he goes, it's such a small property. I don't even know where you move the septic. I don't even know where you take it. And the soil is just all like marshy, swampy. There's no dry. He was like, I think you're probably gonna have to do an alternative system or have to do something like that because I would stay away from it. It's probably cost you, if you're lucky, 30, on the bad side, 60, you know, so then I'll first call Rob, and I'm like, I'm sorry, I'm gonna have to pass. And I even gave her $2,500 of the EMD, which was, you know, keep it for your trouble. But
have you ever had where you had to dig a well and you found there was no water?
okay, yeah, so I bought a house in Spotsylvania. Here's another thing. If someone's wholesaling a house, be very wary. There's a reason why a house that's worth 325, they're letting it go for 200, right? Because this person was renting out this house and the house had no water. It turns out that the people living in the house would go across the street to the neighbors and get water and put it in the well. Or I don't even know what they did actually, because I never saw the house, and I bought it, I don't see. But the point is, when we get into the house, I was gonna keep it as a Section 8 rental, right? 4 bedrooms, 2 baths, right off that, I had the lease signed for $2,800. I'm like, this is the best buy I've ever had, right? Section 8 inspector comes in, says, everything's good to go, however, we don't seem to find any water. Right? So then I go to my contractor who did the renovation for me. I'm like, I'm asking you a question, didn't you guys say you guys power washed the house? We're like, yeah, but we just thought there was something wrong with the electrical panel and the water just wasn't turning on. I'm like, you guys have been working on this house for about 3 weeks and none of you guys never turned on the water, never used the restroom, right? And they're like, no, we just thought there was something wrong with the electrical panel, maybe the fuse was out. And my point is that they've been renting it out for 3 years to someone who's paying them $1,600 a month. And my point is that this is why they went to the wholesaler, right? So someone in Fairfax.
So stuff happens, I guess, maybe.
Let me just get it.
Next time on Jad's YouTube series.
No, just last thing.
All right.
It's so hard to find a person that can dig a well. It's not easy. There's a 6-month backlog for well drilling. I think Mark, you know, it took, I had to pay someone $16,000 when it only cost $5,000 for the well, just for them to come out. So just long story short, anyone who's wholesaling a house with a well or septic, please be very careful. Like, there's a reason why they just don't want to list it on the MLS.
So stuff happens, and well and septic stuff is maybe among the more tricky stuff that you could have to deal with. But to answer the question of what would keep you from buying a house physically, not much, because physically you can fix pretty much anything with enough money. So if you get enough of a good deal, you can account for whatever physical stuff you've got going on. What you can't fix is the market. You can't fix where it is. A la deals that we've had in parts of the world where the market value has stayed at least the same and maybe even gone down.
Yeah.
when the rest of the world has gone up. There are parts of the world, by the way, where prices don't go up. There are cities in this country that are not doing well economically, that more people are leaving than moving in. That's something that you can't fix, right? So you need to understand the market where you're buying, and we'll get to it in a minute, but doing this kind of thing like here in great cities like Reston is incredibly difficult. The numbers don't work. So you're going to have to look in areas where people are talking about that they're buying outside of the city, outside of the major metropolitan areas. So then you just have to be a little bit more careful about the particular area you're buying in and its economic prospects, its demographic prospects. Are people moving in? Is business coming, or are people leaving, like Buffalo or Detroit? Not to say Detroit is necessarily bad. We know people that have done really well there, but there are also plenty of parts of some of these places that you don't want to buy in because they're not coming back anytime soon. Not a great place to be trying to rent a property at because you can't fix a city.
I'm like, because you named a city.
You said Buffalo.
I know,
Like
we're
that.
just not
I'm
right.
sorry.
Now,
I'm sorry.
It's okay, it's all right.
that's okay.
Are you itching to move back to Buffalo?
No.
No, that's my point. I'm sorry. No,
No, well, so what's interesting is that I bought a duplex in a place for $50,000. 15 years later, it's still worth $50,000.
I don't want to hear
If
that.
I'm lucky, right? And so you just have to start, like, realize.
Well, that was a mistake. So now on to.
Well, what I did was I paid it off and then I'm owner financing it and but I'm just gonna get my money back out like that over time.
Be a little flexible.
And then some.
Yeah, and then some, right?
So be a little flexible, I guess, is another one of the points. You're gonna have to be a little bit of flexible to be a buy and hold seller. You're gonna have to deal with a lot of this other stuff if you're fixing and flipping too, but you are gonna possibly own these properties for years. So think about having to own them for years. One of the best places to get a property is from a landlord who doesn't want to do it anymore, right? So pro tip, just ask around to other landlords. If you're getting tired of getting phone calls in the middle of the night about your banged up house and tenant doesn't want to pay, let me know, maybe I'd be willing to buy
I
it.
think I'm like, you bought a package of properties from landlord, right?
Portfolio, yeah. So
Portfolio.
hired landlords that just hired and usually managing themselves.
Yeah.
That's what I focus on.
Where do you find this type of?
Other property managers, typically just networking, in rooms like this.
Yeah.
And I try to buy the entire portfolio from them because it's hard for them to sell it off one at a time. And then I keep what I like, try to burr out of them and then sell off the ones that are.
Let me give you guys a pro tip. Like what he just said, he said something, it's like, John, do you have clients that don't love their properties right now as a property manager? Like that they're challenged by the property?
No, we take the challenge for them, so they love it.
Okay.
They don't have to deal with the headaches, but there are 2 or 3 that are going to sell next month. Actually, Angus Smalls, he's selling one of his. But it.
Yeah, what's his name?
No, but here's the deal. I know that the point is property managers know about the problems that people have with some of those. And some of those landlords, like, for example, I own a little portfolio of properties that I'm not in love with. And if that property manager told an investor, I'd be happy to work out a deal on those deals, right?
And all of them are at this point, it's just good timing right now. Leases are ending these months and it's like, what's going on with the rates and the way they're selling? Just makes sense. They're all gonna probably 1031 them. So they've owned them and they've been investments long enough to where they can't get the capital gains benefits otherwise, so.
Appreciate it. Go ahead.
So yeah, where do you want to own? How long do you intend to keep your rental portfolio? How are you gonna manage a couple of properties versus maybe 10 or more? You might not want to be doing all that yourself, so you need to know people like John who manage my rental property. What rate of return do you get from other investments? Because there's other stuff you can do with money besides invest in real estate. We like real estate for a number of reasons, but you may have other opportunities. You can buy Tesla stock too. And what rate of appreciation do you expect from real estate in the shorter and longer term? As I said, I don't think it's a great idea if you're just looking for somewhere to park your money for the next 2 years. Probably not a great market environment to be doing this in, but in 2 years, depending on where things go, and you're looking to hold for the next 15 years, could be a good thing to do. So where then do we like to invest? Anywhere that it makes sense, but where does it typically happen? Smaller?
I like markets where I'm seeing growth occur. right? Like we're saying where people are moving into. You can actually go to these different county websites and you can see what the growth has been in those counties or in those cities by pulling that data. And you'll learn, are people more people moving into Buffalo or moving out of Buffalo, right? And then that will determine what's gonna happen with those prices. So I like doing that kind of research, and then I like going and finding kind of like, what's the mid-market in that market, right? What's the type of, what is kind of like your blue collar mid-market type of property there? Those are the ones that I like. It's harder to make the numbers work, the more expensive that asset is. Can you do it? Yeah, if you put a lot of money down. What is it?
Honestly, one of the really good sites that actually aggregates all that information is Redfin. They're really good about that. You can do a lot of market statistics, and you can really drill down like almost to neighborhood zip code level sort of details.
You know, they were putting out the list, like the top 10 growth markets in the United States. Right, you guys saw places like Tampa, Florida, right? So a lot of investors going down to Tampa, buying property in Tampa. So yeah, all the data is on Zillow and on Redfin. Anybody else have places to get data that they recommend? No?
I have a question.
Sure.
I hear a lot of people that live in Fairfax or nearby, but you guys buy way out of this area. How did you get started with that? Like all of those Marshalls, South of Virginia, did you do your own research and started going, or do you like use other agents?
I find a good agent in every, so I started in Hawaii as an agent in Hawaii, and it was too expensive to shoot. So I had to learn how to investigate other markets. I've always started with a really good agent that knows how to invest and find property manager and team, and then you go from there.
It's about building a team. It's about building a team, right? You can't do this without a team.
Right.
And you may want to find an area that you like, right? That might pull you in that general direction. So he started in Hawaii, and then it was like, it's too expensive. Real estate's expensive, right? Yeah. And he came down to Northern Virginia. And then at one point, the numbers made sense here. I was telling you, one of the biggest mistakes I made was in 2013 or 2014, I thought everything was overpriced. Because it crashed so low, and I bought in 08 and 09. By 2012, I was like, man, these prices are crazy, right? They're crazy.
What they are now.
I know, and so, but shame on me, because the numbers still made sense. My God, it's not about the price. It's, can you make the rental and purchase ratio work based on the interest rates of the day? And then can you hold it for a period of 9 years or longer, right? So price becomes irrelevant. And this is a mistake that happens with a lot of landlords who maybe bought, like, let's say in Arlington, right? At one point, buying a single family house in Arlington for $400,000 was crazy, right? Now you can't do that. My best friend's dad bought his house for $40,000 in Arlington, and we sold the land for $800,000, right? It just, over time, that happens, right? And so, especially in growth markets, so you have to have like a long-term view of what's happening in a market. I remember early on, I said, this is my younger self, I think I was like 28 or 29. And I was like, you know, if I just bought out Route 7, I guarantee you that like just buying out Route 7 would be a good thing for me, right? Did I take my own advice? No. But like years later, I was like, damn, I was right. I was right. And so you just start, yeah, and by the way, I started learning to listen to that little intuition. I started learning to listen to it and taking action on it, right? So.
But I think what you're looking for are markets that have stable and predictable and understandable rental rates, monthly average rental rates, at acquisition costs low enough where those rental rates cover the cost of ownership and produce profit or cash flow at the end of the month, right? It's really hard to do in downtown McLean. If you have to pay $1 million for the house, the mortgage on that thing's gonna be $5,000 a month. The rent is only going to be so much. People will only pay you for a nice luxury house $4,500 a month. The math just doesn't work, and it's not even just McMansions and McLean. I'll show you in a second why a townhouse in Herndon probably won't make sense right now if you pay full market price for it and rent it at whatever the full market rent is right now. So it's not going to be a really good cash flow exercise in major metropolitan areas, in luxury housing for traditional long-term rent. Short-term rental in some markets, mansions probably work really, really well. But for traditional portfolio rental properties, it's really hard to make it work with luxury housing.
I'm gonna say one of the other things to look at when you're considering new areas, look for the average income ratio to the average rent ratio. If that's, 35, 36% or under, that's a good, healthy market to be in. If it starts to creep up past 40% of income of a renter is going to their household income, especially if it's over 50%, that's a market that's gonna cool off in the rental prices. If it's in the 20s, you've got room to grow. So that's a good data point to look at when you're looking at new markets.
Great data point.
Absolutely. Great advice. Thank you, John.
You're smarter than you look.
I try to do that.
So, and then what are we doing with the properties when we buy them? Buy and hold properties, we're typically not tricking these things up to the same extent that we do our rehab property, right? Kind of fix what's broken, a lot of paint and carpet jobs. Paint the cabinets if you think you can get away with it. Again, these are not $900,000 McMansions. These are $200,000 townhouses, and the painted cabinet is good enough. The refreshed paint and carpet and kind of just fixing the things that are gross is usually good enough. We're using a lot of LVP and plain white tile and the entry-level appliances, right? For our stuff, and that's again for long-term rental. We'll have a discussion maybe one month about Airbnb. That's where you can kind of let your free flag fly on.
We're doing a little bit of that right now, so.
On the rehab, right? You can do all kinds of cool stuff for that market. But in your traditional bread and butter rental market, we're just trying to make them pleasant and clean and durable. All right, so property management, how does that work? What does that cost, and what do you get for your money? John, you want to take this part? Tell me if I'm right. Property managers cost typically 8 to 10% of your gross month's rent, typically somewhere between 1/2 and 1 month's rent at turnover, right? Somebody's got to show the house, somebody's got to vet the tenant, somebody's got to pull the credits, somebody's got to review all the reports, send them the lease, collect the money, do all those things. You can do all of those things yourself, but for somewhere between 8 and 10% a month and 1/2 to 1 month's rent when the tenant turns over, someone will do all of those things for you. I'll give you a reason why you might want to do it, even if you don't need to in a second. But the property manager also handles your marketing, those background checks, rent collection, repairs, evictions, that kind of bit. Sends you your reports on your expenses, right, on what repairs were done and what that property management fee was, so that you can hand that over to your accountant. Do you get into cost segregation stuff with any of your clients?
We have commercial tenants that we do, but for residential, typically it's not.
Pro tip, sidebar question or issue. Cost segregation is the process of, you may have heard of depreciation. And one of the benefits of owning rental property beyond just cash flow is the fact that the government allows us to depreciate it over time and assume that it's falling apart, even when you're maintaining it and it's not. So over the course of 27.5 years, you get to say every year it's going to be worth a little bit less, government. So I'm going to take that loss on my taxes because it's actually the house falling down. And so you actually get to take this loss against the income every year. It's called depreciation. You can accelerate that process with something called cost segregation, which looks at the house instead of the whole thing at 27.5 years, says carpet's only going to last 5 years. Paint's only going to last 10 years. Appliances are only good for 7 years. You have a professional put that study together for you, and you can accelerate a lot of that depreciation instead of over 27 years and averaging something like 8%
So
a
if you're
year.
making a crap load 1 year, you can literally cost segregate and like reduce your taxable income pretty significantly.
Yep.
Almost everything.
When you do that, just be careful, it's not the land, it's only the.
It's only.
That's right. You cannot depreciate land. There's not making any more of it, so the government doesn't.
Our clients
allow
is like, but it's worth 4. It's like, no, the house is worth 2, the land's worth 2.
That's right.
You only get the 2.
This is property management. Other pro tip: keep rents at or maybe even slightly below market rent. Yes, you can try to be the high guy in the neighborhood and squeeze the absolute last penny out of every tenant you can shove into your house. But 1 month's rent turnover on a $2,000, let's make the math a little bit easier, $2,400 a month rental costs you how much a month? $200. So if you lose just 1 month of rent, charging $200 a month more for the next guy that moves in still doesn't get you even for a year. the best thing in the world are tenants that don't move out. And what tenants stay for is knowing that they've got a better deal in your house than they're gonna get if they move anywhere else in the area. So be $100 below average market rate in your neighborhood and see if you can't have tenants that maybe stay for 2, 3, 5. You've had tenants for 10 years?
15 years? Well, yeah, 15 years.
Much, much less expensive to own a property when the tenants don't move out ever. or
No, I mean,
every
your
5 years.
highest cost is tenant turnover.
Yeah.
Your highest cost is tenant turnover.
The tenants are much more informed now. They see the same statistics and data that we do, almost down to the penny. So they know what the house is worth.
Mhm.
And if you're gonna market it for 2,000 and bill us at 19, they're like, nope.
And so then the last point here, and the reason that, that I use property management is always do credit and background checks, never accept excuses or partial payment. Credit and background check, what kind of things do you look for in credit and background check?
Big flags are obviously eviction, foreclosures, repossessions, things like that. We see everything down to a speeding ticket. Criminal is done case by case, depending on the charge, but obviously making sure that they can afford the home, pay for the home, take care of the home. Those are the big things. If they've been renting for 2 or 3 years at a place at 2,000 and they're moving to your place for 21, get a good landlord reference, they're probably gonna be fine for you. But if you get that hesitation of that, well, there was that one time where they were late, well, they're probably gonna be late with you too.
Can I discriminate based on criminal and background checks?
You can, case by case.
John's not an attorney, neither am I. But you can base rental decisions on criminal and background checks.
If you can demonstrate a danger to the property or the community for that tenant, a good example would be, we had one guy, and I give the same spiel to everybody, let me know, I'll see it, let me know, I can get ahead of it. Nope, we're fine. 14 felonies later, I was like, oh, you're an arsonist, okay.
An arsonist.
Yeah. We're not
Welcome to my
moving
house.
into a condo. Yeah. The other one is obviously if they have to register on certain lists and you're in a condo or you're a school, then you can demonstrate a danger to the community.
Yeah,
I have a question. So right now inflation is really high on
Mm-hmm.
rents. How do you raise rent on existing tenants and not scare them, given that, like, for example, I have a house that I rent out for 2,500 and Aldi. Well, inflation now is for the roof, it's like maybe 3,000, 3,200. But I don't want to raise the rent to that because they're good tenants, they've been there for 3 years. So what's the reasonable increase and how do you explain it?
We had a very similar situation where it was a 20% market increases. If we were gonna market the home, it would have been a 20% increase in rent. Went to the owners and were like, that's a bit much. They might not want to do that. So we actually kept it $200 under the market rent. They didn't like it because it did go up significantly, but we showed them all that data. Said, look, if we want to keep you, that's why we're $200 under the market rent. The owner's losing $2,400 a year. So, and they looked, the whole neighborhood was $200 more a month. So they're like, well, if you give them that information you're looking at, and if you're keeping it at or below the market rent, they understand. And it's condo fees have gone up. We last month,
Taxes,
9%.
condo
So yeah,
fees, HOA fees, everything's going up.
insurance. Yep,
Yeah.
everything's going up. And so it's all you're doing is covering your cost basis at that point. Maybe you're making a couple bucks, but when you give them that information, you explain it to them in that sort of light, rather than just saying basically take it or leave it. Like, look, Aldi is worth 3,000. Aldi's worth 3,200. I live in Aldi, I know it. I'm gonna do 2,850. I don't want to scare you guys away. You guys are great tenants. I'm gonna take a little hit. Yes, it's more than we normally like to raise the rent per year, but this is where we're at. And if you're brutally honest with them, they'll appreciate that.
But don't you think the only problem with that is that if they're on a fixed income mark and they're, if their salary hasn't increased because of inflation, then it's basically like, okay, I get it, because inflation, but my salary hasn't increased. You know what I'm saying? So then what do I do?
Where you gonna go?
Yeah,
That's the thing.
You don't make
I'm
the
going to
market.
the Woodbridge. Forget all the. I'm gonna go rent from Rob.
It's hard, it's hard. Inflation is a tax on the poor. But
And
essentially-
we don't make the markets. The markets are what they are. But those tough discussions and more are the reasons that I don't want to do it. I don't want to answer the phone when shit breaks. I don't want to have to break the hard news that your rent's going up $200 a month. And I certainly don't want to hear why you can't pay the rent this month. A property manager takes care of all that, so I can still be the good guy.
And the good news is like the property manager can still be the good guy too, because you're like, well, the owner's making us do it. They don't know that.
Feel free to blame me, but I'm not there to have to deal with it, right? So if you can take care of this stuff on your own, fine, then do it on your own. But know yourself. I just know that I'm not a good bad guy, so I let someone else take care of that. And you can be a good guy, but don't be a good guy with your estate, with your net worth, with your ability to pay for your life and do good things. Make money with your property. Never take anybody's excuse. If they can afford to live in our house, they can live in our house. If you can't afford to live in my house, I'm sure you can find someone else's house you can afford to live in. Make good money on your portfolio and then do good things with it, right? But don't get in the habit of doing breaks, making deals, doing stuff, because that never, ever works out well for you. That will result in a terrible portfolio that you will end up selling to someone else in this room because it's a bad deal for you, right? If you're that kind of person, good, hire someone to take care of it for you, right? Do all the background checks, have the hard conversations, evict when you need to evict, and make your portfolio perform. So
We
that's
have
the
a
pitch for
share
property.
through our corporation, and we're happy to use it when needed, but it's a business.
Right.
So
Do people typically like lower their rent also? Like one day they just decide to go up like $200, but they lower it at $20.
No, I really only seen it once.
If the market dictated that I needed to lower it, I would lower it.
Yeah.
But if the market didn't dictate it, now you just gonna lower the rent.
If it's happened, it's not happened in decades around here, but that's part of the macroeconomic cost of living analysis that John was talking about. In most major metropolitan areas, the cost of living actually is increasing. And the percentage of your income going to housing is increasing in most major metro areas. So the rents just don't go down in major metropolitan areas until stuff really hits the fan and something badly breaks. But even when it badly broke last time in 2007, rents around here really didn't go down much, if
They
at
didn't go
all.
down at all.
Housing prices did though. Really good time to be buying. So if we start to sense distress in the market over the next.
Over the next
coming months,
like, I'm gonna buy as much as I possibly can. I'm just gonna continue to buy. If I can make the numbers make sense.
when everyone else you know that's not going to these kinds of things, says, well, real estate is stupid, that's when you need to back up the truck and buy everything you can get your hands on,
Yeah.
right?
When everybody's fearful, be greedy. When everybody's greedy, be fearful.
Yeah. All right, so let's run through the numbers real quick, how numbers typically work. And these are kind of rough approximations. Your mileage will vary on what kind of terms and things you can get, but on average, you're gonna get 75%, maybe 80% LTV on your loans, right? That means you're gonna need to have roughly 25% down to purchase your property. If you're gonna get a conventional use hard money, then it's usually probably somewhere around the same in LTV, maybe even a little bit less. But you buy, you renovate, you refinance, and when you refinance, you'll be able to get that 75-ish% loan to value and hopefully pull out as much as you possibly can, up to 10 properties. Again, per person in a couple can be financed with conforming Fannie and Freddie loans. That's the cheap stuff, right? The cheapest money you'll ever get is the Fannie and Freddie money, but you can also get those debt service coverage ratio loans, which is a slight bit more expense, or maybe
Let me ask
even
you a
not,
question.
which is good to hear.
Coleman, what are interest rates right now for investments, Fannie Freddie? Like, what are you seeing?
Yes, I haven't seen, I hadn't looked at investment property this week, actually. The last time I checked, it was in the mid-sixes.
Okay.
It's really dependent on the down payment. The 25% equity is a good rule of thumb. I mean, you can do as little as 15% down, but you're gonna pay so much in points that you might as well put 20 or 25%. So it's dependent, but I'd say low mid-sixes-ish.
Okay.
I was gonna say, I got 6 and 3.6 and a 0.75 quote just this week, so it's going up a little. Conforming loans are typically owned personally, not in an LLC, right? So when you just go to your regular old fashioned bank, say, hey, I'd like to get 30-year Fannie Freddie money, they will not lend to an LLC directly on day one. You would refer, if you could, to own your property in a limited liability company. So there are some vague workarounds. Lenders, close your ears. you can deed into the limited liability company, but maybe call it like the blah, blah management LLC. Because when lenders see management company and the owner, oh, well, it's a management company that's taken over for a person. Our person is still back there. The due on sale clause is what you're worried about, right? If you buy it in your personal name and then you transfer it into an LLC, you have transferred the property out of your name. The bank lent the money to you. They didn't lend it to your limited liability company that you set up to limit your liability, right? So they consider that transfer a sale and they say, well, you sold the property, so now you need to pay me off in the next 30 days and get money from somewhere else if you want. So there are ways around that. Again, not an attorney.
I've never seen that happen.
I have never, ever seen a due on sale clause actually called.
They call
Due on sale, anybody lately?
I'm working with someone right now.
Yeah.
They're buying up a bunch of properties in Baltimore. They did it in their personal name and then they transferred it to an LLC. And, you know, I looked it up on the Maryland SDAT website and it's like, yeah, it is in fact in this LLC name. And their conventional Fannie Mae mortgage is behind it that he wants to refinance because of the, you know, he can't come up to over 10 properties. And I'm asking him like, how did the bank not know that you're doing this? So, you know, he's trying to, you know, keep it on the up and up. He's transferring it, the loan, to a commercial mortgage in an LLC with me.
Right.
So I have seen that.
Commercial mortgage, different deal. You can get a loan based on the value of the portfolio or the performance of the portfolio, but there are different requirements for that. Usually you have to have a different personal financial situation to qualify for those loans. So it's a different discussion that you're having. And so there is a difference between knowing and caring when it comes to the lenders choosing to enforce a due on sale clause. But it is a threat, but there are ways around it. We'll talk, maybe you could come ask me after the other things that you can do about it to get things out of your
I
question.
think it might be more likely in a rising rate environment.
Yeah.
Because they can take that money and
Right.
put it at a higher rate.
That's the concern, right? Is, okay, we've lent all this money out at 2 and 3%, and now the prevailing rate is 6. Well, maybe we have a little more incentive to go digging around in the files here and see if there's anybody who's transferred property that we can say, hey, I want that money back because I'm gonna go lend it out at 6.5. Maybe, again, I didn't see it in 2008 or 9 when the same thing was happening. then.
Which is so smart.
Is there a paragraph at the deed somewhere?
It happened to me in the,
Possibly.
so I converted like my property into my first LLC, Raman Homes LLC. So it, like I bought this property like 4 years back and it was going fine. I converted like for 6 months, I changed it to LLC, nobody cared. Just like 2 months back, the issue was the insurance was on LLC. Because they were, you know, insurance has to be on the title name.
Right.
So bank picked up the insurance and they say like, no, it looks like your insurance is on LLC, your loan is on your personal name. What's going on? So I immediately converted back to my personal name. Just so that, you know, they're gonna kind of tie it up again and its rates are going up, as he said. So it does happen. And it happened to me.
So what do you recommend? So say you're starting out with your first property, you just recommend buying it in your personal name and kind of make it work personally, and then when you pay it down your first property, then you get into the kind of commercial running it like a business.
If there's any way you can get it done in an LLC in the first few, it's gonna set you up long term, but you're right, you're probably gonna.
You have to buy it in your own name. You're just gonna have to buy it in your
But
own.
I mean, pay it off completely, then get
No,
into your.
You're gonna transfer it into the name of the into the LLC, right? It's like, it's, they didn't come and say there was a due on, they didn't say, you just got spooked.
They just
right?
like explain what's going on.
Explain.
Your insurance is on LLC, your loan is on your personal
Yeah.
name, explain.
I'm pretty sure that if you had just explained,
So
then
what I did
you
was
would've been fine.
immediately called my insurance guy, changed back to my personal name. So send them the new insurance thing and talk with the title company, change back to my name.
Because banks know that this is estate planning, right? Estate planning 101 for your trust, for asset protection. My experience has been as long as that note is getting paid and they don't care who it's getting paid by, it's a performing note and they don't want to mess with that. Now, that said, I know the compliance officer here on my left, when I say that, starts having palpitations a little bit because things could happen, right? It could get called and he's
Big
just making us
reset.
aware of that. What's that?
The big reset, all the banks could call everybody's note at 3% and start reset.
There you go.
They
Possibly.
could, we haven't seen it, but it's possible. So 6-month principal interest tax reserve typically required with most lenders. They want to see that money in an account somewhere. And then, yeah, refinancing typically slightly lower LTV, but I bet you can do better than 70% now, even on a refi. 75, even 80 is still doable right now because the money's a little bit loose. But technically, so let's talk about money. Let's look at an example deal here.
Let's make it fast.
Let's make it fast. It's a $250,000 townhouse. It needs $10,000 of work to be able to be rented, $1,750 a month, and it's got a $75 a month HOA. We'll call this the Herndon Special. These townhouses are out there. You can buy a house in Herndon right now in kind of rough shape for $250 maybe, and put 10 grand in it, clean it up, and get it 10.
It's not $1,750 anymore.
What is it now?
It's $2,000.
You think two?
Oh, yeah, it's $2,000.
What are you at now on average?
19.
You're at 19 average? Good. Let's add, cool, let's add $150 to the bottom line here and see how it works. Tenant's gonna pay utilities and the landlord pays $4,000 a year in taxes, $1,200 a year in insurance. Pretty straightforward. This is a typical Northern Virginia cheap townhouse deal. So other assumptions, we're gonna get a 75% loan to value at 5%, which today is probably more like 6%. So that's gonna eat up the other $150 a month that you just made. So I take it all back. Assume that the ratios here are still fine. Because the $150 a month that he's making, he's gonna pay directly to the bank. $1,000 a year in lost rent during a tenant turnover. And by the way, that's not even a full month. That's assuming if your tenant leaves, you can get another guy in there in 2 weeks, as fast as you can paint it, carpet it, put it back out on Craigslist. And $1,000 a year in repairs. Who knows? Some years are high, some years are low. Some years your AC craps out, but you've gone 10 years by spending like nothing on that unit, so you're due. But an average, probably $1,000 a year in repair on a small townhouse, because stuff does occasionally break. You get depreciation, right? So you'll get to lower your tax basis. Your loan will be paid off by your tenant slowly over time. So you have an amortization schedule, right? And then the first month, very small amount goes towards the principal, a large amount towards the interest, and then that kind of flips over time. And that's one of the other great things about rental real estate is even if you break even, you're making money. Even if the house doesn't increase in value, you're making money because this thing that you own is slowly being paid down to where you don't owe anything on it while someone else is paying the bill, right? So that's a great thing. And yes, sometimes real estate does go up in value and we want that too, but I'm not gonna take any of that into consideration. You can't spend depreciation, you can't spend the equity, let's take a loan out, and you can't spend
I
appreciation.
mean, when you think about it, tenants pay off a house. They're just paying off your house.
That's right. So how does the math end up working on this? This deal is gonna need about $70,000 in equity, between 25% down and 6 months worth of reserve. Take my word for it, you can check the math. So you're gonna have about 70 grand to do it. Your monthly costs are gonna be about $1,000 a month for the mortgage, $400 a month for the taxes, $100 a month for the insurance, $75 for the HOA. You got $1,575 a month, PITI, HOA, that it costs you to own this thing, right? That's roughly $18,000 a year, just cost, no property manager, just the actual cost of owning the house. Throw an 8% property management fee on top of that, and that adds about $126 a month, or about $1,500 a year. That would take your total cost from $18,900 to about $20,400. That's your annual cost of owning this thing for the property manager. So our income at $1,750 a month is $21,000 a month, but we're going to lose about $2 grand a year in having to fix some stuff up or having it empty for a couple of weeks while we have to put a new tenant in there. Actual income of roughly $19,000, right? That means you've lost about $1,000 over the course of the year if you had a property manager in place on what might have felt like a good deal to buy a house for $250,000 that only needed 10 grand to fix up and put a tenant in. That is why this is so hard to do around here. It's really, really difficult to get the numbers to work. That's why we're in Stevens City and Woodbridge, if you're lucky,
Spotsylvania.
or Spotsylvania County, or Culpeper, or North Carolina, right? The numbers are better in smaller areas where the cost of living for rent is still kind of here-ish, but the cost of the house, instead of being $250, is $150. If you paid $150 for this house, it makes a lot of money, but it's going to make $300-400 a month. Actual cash flow, which is going to be a really good rate of return on your $70,000, whereas this is like a 2.8% return on your $70,000 If you had no property manager, you're doing it all yourself, right? You're at like 2.8 self-managed or 5.6 if you didn't even take a loan out, you did it in cash, you had a spare $250,000 and you stuck it in a house. By the way, there are people who do that. That's who buys a lot of the townhouses for cash. You've got cash buyers, Chad, right? Were they from around here? Yeah, there are plenty of people with cash who will still buy real estate with cash. And they'll be okay with a 5.6% return because they're also getting depreciation. They're hoping the thing will go up over time, and then the tenants are also paying it off. But I can't compete with a guy that's got $250,000 to throw over a house. So we're looking for deals, right? We are looking in areas that are maybe not our backyard today, but maybe will be if there's a little disruption in the
Or you're
market.
looking to also look at an asset and figure out, is there another way to extract more rent from that asset, right? Can you rent your basement that we talked about instead of, right, doing something like that? Can you get a good return on that money? Or could you look at an asset and say, hey, I can Airbnb this thing, like the rules and restrictions allow me to be able to do that. So you start looking at real estate from a creative standpoint.
Could you do a lease option with your tenant instead of a regular lease, right? You're leasing with the option to buy. Hey, tenant, you want to own this house? Cool. So instead of paying $1,900 a month, you're going to pay $2,300 a month. But I'm going to take $100 of that. I'm going to put it in an account for you. And if you'll pay me $300,000 as soon as you can get financed for it, you can buy the house. The average success ratio on the buyer side for a typical lease option is probably under 10%. So most of the time, your property does not get bought out from under you. You're just making more money on it because you're giving them the potential of being able to buy it while also collecting a higher monthly rent and being responsible for no repairs. And by the way, this is a lease to own thing, so it's going to be yours. And one day this house will be yours. In the meantime, you get to maintain it. Don't call me. Fix anything you need fixing, paint anything that you want to paint. Don't do anything structural or weird, but otherwise enjoy your home. Call me when you can get a loan that will refinance you out, pay me my $300,000, and then you can own it. That is a structure where you can squeeze some additional money out. And actually, you were really successful with that, I think, on one of those Herndon deals that was kind of harder to sell, right? Just sold the 10 lease option. And eventually they did buy it. One of them, right?
I owner financed it.
And there was one that actually they did eventually refinance out and cash you out, right? Getting rid of the property you didn't want to own anymore anyway. So that's good. But that's another way you can kind of squeeze a little extra juice out with the owner financing or the lease option, rent to own option.
So I take it that you didn't like the numbers in the first one, you said deal or no deal. So
oh yeah, that's well. So I don't know. You tell me, Jed. You cool with 2.8%?
So I wouldn't even gone to like all of those slides. I always buy on the 1% rule. If it's 50,000, I would step one. It's not 2,500. I wouldn't even gone to step 2.
Yeah. So I like that too.
I mean,
So
it's not as bad as I
100x.
thought it would be, but
Yeah. 100x the monthly rent, right?
Yeah, but the problem is that
when you
rule
get
is dangerous going into other markets. That rule works around here, but go to Buffalo and that rule doesn't work. Go to Cumberland, that rule doesn't work. Right?
What do you advise on that?
So it's like a 2x.
Oh, that's
right?
awesome. That's
Yeah.
a good problem to have.
Well, no, you've got to make sure that you're acquiring it. So I'll give you an example. I went to that market thinking, oh, if I do a 1% rule on this, right, I do well. But you can buy a duplex for 50 grand. It gets $1,000, it gets a total of $1,000, right? So what would you call that? Like a 2, right? You'll lose money on that deal, believe it or not, because of the age of the asset, because of the tenant turnover that happens there. So then you have to go to that market and be like, okay, is this a 3x market? Is it a 4x market? Each market will. be
Right, the
slightly
variable
different.
was the age of the home and tenant turnover. Yeah, I would rent this voucher tenants. Keep them.
Tenant, yeah, and my voucher tenants do great in that, but so it's interesting is in every market, you can figure out a way to make money in every market. I found that the smaller, little single-family houses that didn't have a high utility cost, those were great bread and butter things. But the multi-family, small duplex or triplex, that was hard for the tenant to keep heated over the winter, right? Because bad insulation in those, bad windows, everything, like it was literally like cycling tenants in and out. And I had to shut a building down. So I own a building that like I pay, you know, a note on that's completely shut down, because it's cheaper for me to keep it shut than to re-rent it.
So I have a pro tip for if you're renting out your basement in McLean. I had a friend of mine, she called, she got like a 7-page report from Fido in Fairfax, because she was renting out her basement, I guess, to a family. I guess like a husband, wife, and one child. And so the neighbor, I guess, was there all the time, when, and there's like this snitch website on Fairfax, where it says like, what time does the violation happen? When can I go and see them there? So this poor lady gets like a 7-page notice on her, and she's just like, you know, nice lady, lives by herself, just trying to, you know, do what Mark says and make some extra money. So they come in, like, the inspector comes, this house isn't zoned for people in the basement, and blah, blah, blah. And I guess if she had just like had like, you know, just my point is, if you're gonna house hack, maybe not try to do it to an entire family, so the neighbors realize that you're renting it out to someone who's not supposed to be there.
So I got a question for, this might be applicable to those starting out, maybe more seasoned people. But what's your opinion on you personally as an individual? Because you have to live somewhere. So say someone for me just starting out where I'm still a renter, I don't own property. So do you think it's better for me, and I want to get into investment properties and buy like one of those townhouses and rent it out, but I still need to live somewhere. So do you think it's better for me to find something at a lower rate, a lot less than a mortgage, and just rent and have a fixed rental costs, and I don't have to worry about the AC going out and these big housing expenses, live at and rent where I live, and then take my money and invest it in a rental property and buy the rental property and make the money on the rental? Or do I buy a property and live where I own it? And maybe same for the people that are seasoned.
You absolutely want to buy that property, live in that property, rent out rooms in that property, or that basement in that property. For a couple of reasons. One, the type of loan that you get is going to be substantially easier to get and better, right? Two, you've got other people that are literally paying off that mortgage for you. Like, to me, that is like the biggest, fastest way for somebody to build wealth. If you're okay with other people living with you, and you could create the environment where, like my wife and I, we lived in the basement, and we created a whole contained unit in the basement, and we had our own walkout, right, basement. It felt like our own apartment. We rented out the bedrooms upstairs, and the kitchen and living room were like the community place, and we were young, right, and it didn't matter. I would do that, right, instead of doing the other thing you're talking about.
Unless you found some kind of screaming good opportunity where you can live super dirt cheap, take whatever money you have available to invest.
Live with mom and dad.
And
you
invest
don't-
it, right, and invest it in a 20-unit building that's gonna cash flow tens of thousands of dollars a year. But more likely, the most likely path for most people to wealth in real estate is start with yourself, because you do have to live somewhere. And if you can stand to live with other people, my wife were allowed, I'd put people in the garage. I'd be one of those. So while your situation allows it, that will be the cheapest, easiest way to do it, is to buy your own place, rent out whatever else you can in that house. You'll get the cheapest money. You're gonna own it anyway. If it's a good rental now, it'll be a good rental in 25 years. You don't have to live there forever. You'll be able to move later when you're ready.
Now it's,
So usually start with yourself.
let's do this. We'll start winding this down, right? So that you guys can meet each other and network, and that's what this is all about. But what I heard people say in the beginning is that they want to do this because they want to create some kind of cash flow that occurs, right? And you can start looking at areas in your life where you can create cash flow without necessarily buying a new property, right? The discussion that Roxana and I had was, well, maybe instead of buying that property in Buffalo, you can, or buying another property, you can put 20,000 into a basement and then rent the basement and then look at what the return is on something like that. Or you can finish a garage that you might have and, like, you know, you've seen like the living situations above a garage, and calculate what your rate of return would be by making that investment, right? Or Mark Beckett, you could put somebody's classic car in that garage that you guys have and rent that to somebody, right? There's people that need space, and you know, you start looking at real estate slightly differently. One of the things we talked about was real estate arbitrage, right? You could actually rent a property for $1,900 and then
Airbnb allows it.
Yeah, Airbnb it, or the lease allows it, you could sublease it for more, right? And I have a friend of mine that makes 6 figures just doing that. He owns 6 properties, but he has 75 that he controls, and he makes a high six-figure income just creating arbitrage and doing it through Airbnb, right? That's all he does. And so what he did was, he signed a lease with you at $2,000, and then he understood the rules, and he had the right agreement, and you got the buy-in. You got your as the guaranteed, you got your $2,000 that you wanted, and then he would release it for $4,000, right? And then he's making the spread. And so do a little research tonight on that. You guys can start thinking about how to create cash flow without actually owning it, but controlling it. Now, we believe in owning. Like, we're definitely owners, right? Long term, because you build wealth that way. And if you wanted to create some income stream, it's just an idea.
And if you guys want, something you guys want, like, thing, I have a listing, I have an all cash offer over $1 million from a company called bungalow.com. You guys want to go on your phone and look them up. They're basically doing what Rob is doing. They're doing shared housing. They're going nationwide.
Yes.
And they called me. They're like, "Oh, your house fits our criteria. We're gonna offer you $1 million cash."
And by the way, they're not the only one. There's like a lot of businesses doing this right now. And what they're doing is they're
Bungalow.com.
yeah, and they're appealing to the millennial generation. Like, literally, it's almost like you can rent a room in Arlington on an app and see who your roommates are.
Those go across the country.
Yeah.
Those people want to buy your house, right? Jared Bungalow?
Yeah.
There are people who offer the service of, we will help you chop your house up. Your living room becomes a bedroom, your dining room becomes a bedroom. You turn your thing into whatever the law will allow legally. Max out the rooms in the house, and then they will manage the room rental. So now you're renting by the head, by the bed, and just hot racking an entire house, but their numbers make sense.
I can even rent out our basement. without neighbors. You can't have more than 4 unrelated people, I guess, living in one house. And I think the
It's
basement
considered a
wasn't-
brothel.
And the basement wasn't zoned to be an apartment.
It's not permitted in Reston, though, is it? Like,
Nothing is permitted.
Nothing
in
is
Reston.
permitted. I know, you can't even have
Nothing,
the wrong color mulch.
But now go on to Airbnb, and how many Airbnbs will you find in Reston?
Oh, I have a friend who has a townhouse, 3-bedroom, and there are pool companies out there that bring lifeguards during summer, and they need properties fast for a couple of months, and they don't need them, so they don't want to take sign long-term lease. So he put 4 lifeguards. Now he's like, single guy, so he put 4 girls in his house.
In his house?
Yeah, like literally.
You got paid for it? So it is a bad.
So he went from living in this entire townhouse to living in the basement and renting out the rest of the house, and his mortgage is paid now.
Poor guy.
And he's gonna be starting on my new fiance. She came here like.
So there's all kinds of cool stuff out there you can do. The last one I would recommend is to think bigger too, because the numbers all work the same for a 4-unit building or a 14-unit building or a 40-unit building. You just need to cover the principal, interest, taxes, maintenance, the other things that you have to cover to own the building. But why not do it with a larger building? And by the way, it can be just as easy to get the money, because that's a commercial loan, but it's a commercial loan from the start. Here's the rent roll. If you know how to use words like capital stack and cost segregation, and I've got trust where I'm going to have a few limited partners, and you just throw the right words around, you'd be surprised what you can get a loan for. This all works with larger properties.
Yeah, actually, on that, let me ask you, like, thinking bigger, that's probably, I realized that was probably one of my mistakes, was not thinking bigger soon enough, right? Like, what got you inspired to be like, I'm gonna go buy a portfolio of properties and buy 52 properties, no, 48?
52 properties in 52 weeks was my goal.
Yeah.
I just need to stretch myself, because I've been doing 5 to 10 a year for the last 20 years, and it was boring, and I just need to push myself outside of the comfort zone. So I set that goal, and that pushed me to set more time, analyze more deals, make more offers. I got to 46, but I wouldn't have gotten anywhere near that.
If you're not set the goal.
I set the goal, and I told the world, I'm gonna do this, and I didn't do it, but the pressure of saying, I'm gonna go do this, I'm gonna go do this, every time I talk to someone, they're like, what number are you at? I'm like, I'm almost there, I'm almost there.
That's cool, yeah, what you did is you manifested that, right?
Yeah. What you focus on expands.
What you focus on expands.
So
Okay,
true.
guys.
All right, that's all I got. Question.
Okay.
I know one question. So what do you do after 10 properties? Like, means, how do you finance the 11th, 12th, 13th.
So at that point, you'll be able to get a commercial loan because you will now have a portfolio of performing properties that you will be able to go to.
But you
lender
could
and say,
get commercial
"Hey,
loans even before you have the portfolio.
yes, you can.
Right.
As soon as you can qualify, both on paper and in your presentation, and that's why I say it really matters, you have to learn the lingo. You have to be able to make a good presentation with a cash flow and learn how to determine internal rate of return and show, okay, here are my cash flow, here's the internal rate of return of my cash flows. I am making good money with this rental portfolio, and I'd like to do more, but would you like to lend me some money, please? Because I'm gonna get it from somewhere, but I'd give you a shot at it if you'd be interested. Have those conversations with lenders as soon as you can make that good presentation. You'd be surprised how easy it is to get commercial loans that then turn you from a one at a time personal landlord into a commercial enterprise that owns real estate and invests in real estate. So you get it by asking for it. is how-
Guys, let's do this. One of the real powers is meeting people in the room that maybe you heard from or want to talk to. We've got money people here, we've got property managers, we've got people that own multiple properties. Like, go exchange information. Like, that's where this really works, right? My network becomes your network becomes our network, right? It's the power of the people that you meet in this room. So